while our southern neighbors steer their economy toward a self-inflicted iceberg of four-year high unemployment and reckless tariffs. Canada is quietly executing a masterclass in economic sovereignty. Did you know that for the first time in years, our per capita GDP is on track to surge in 2025? In this strategic briefing, we'll analyze how the December 16th Buy Canadian law and the 2026 Ring of Fire breakthrough are transforming our nation into an impenetrable economic fortress. Forget the noise. The data proves Canada isn't just surviving. We are outmaneuvering the giants. Here is why our quiet strength is winning. Look out the window for a second and tell me what you see. Because what I see isn't just a cold Canadian winter morning. It's the quiet, steely resolve of a nation that has finally stopped apologizing for its own success. You know, I was standing out there in the frost earlier, feeling that bite in the air that only a Canadian truly understands. And it hit me right then that we are standing at a massive crossroads in our history. For years, we've been told a story of decline, a narrative of being the smaller player on the block. But if you look at the raw data hitting my desk this morning, you'll realize that we are actually in the middle of a sophisticated economic flanking maneuver that is going to change everything for your family and mine. We've spent 3 long years watching our per capita GDP. That's the real measure of how much money is actually in your pocket and mine, stagnate or slip. But the projections for 2025 are finally flipping the script. We are on track to see that number climb for the first time in years. And that isn't just a fluke of the math. It's the result of a deliberate, pragmatic tightening of our national belt. Do you ever wonder why the noise in the media is so negative, when the underlying pulse of the country is finally finding its rhythm again? It's because fear sells, but the truth is that our inflation rate held firm at 2.2% this November. Exactly where we need it to be. While just across the border, our neighbors are practically lighting their own house on fire with policies that are driving costs through the roof. I want you to think about the significance of December 16th, because that date marks a line in the sand that we haven't dared to draw in decades. The federal government is finally implementing the Buy Canadian procurement law. And let me tell you, as someone who has watched our contracts go to massive U.S. conglomerates for years, this is a tectonic shift. We are talking about billions of dollars in federal spending for roads, bridges, and massive infrastructure projects that, by law, must now stay right here at home. No more handing over our tax dollars to foreign firms who take the profits back across the border. We are finally investing in our own engineers, our own laborers, and our own local economies. Can you imagine the sheer scale of the boost this gives to a Canadian business owner who has been struggling to compete with the sheer volume of global giants? It's a defensive perimeter being built around our workforce, and it's about damn time we put our own people first. While some politicians want to scream about everything being broken, they conveniently ignore the fact that our inflation is converging toward that golden 2% threshold, below even what the most optimistic analysts expected. Yes, food prices are a grind. I see the 4.7% increase in grocery costs just like you do. But let's be honest about why that's happening. We're importing inflation from a country that decided to slap tariffs on everything that moves. When the U.S. taxes itself on imports, we pay the price at the checkout counter for our winter fruits and vegetables. But the long-term play here is how we decouple our survival from their volatility. Look at the Ring of Fire deal signed between Ottawa and Ontario. This isn't just about a road. It's about a strategic corridor to the critical minerals that the entire world is screaming for. We've cut the red tape, merging federal and provincial approvals into a one-project, one-review system that actually works. We're talking about starting construction in 2026 on a project that will unlock tens of billions in wealth, and we're doing it by working with First Nations and provincial leaders instead of fighting them. Isn't it interesting how quiet the critics get when you show them a plan that actually builds something? It makes you realize that while the leader of the opposition is busy yelling at seagulls about crime and deficits, the actual gears of the Canadian economy are being greased for a massive comeback. And what about the population shift? For the first time since the pandemic, our population growth has actually dipped, and while some see that as a negative, I see it as a necessary tactical pause. We were growing too fast for our housing supply to keep up, but by stabilizing the numbers in 2025, we are finally giving our housing market room to breathe. November home sales were down 11%, and the average price dropped to $682,209. Now, the doomers will tell you that's a collapse, but for anyone with a brain, that's called affordability returning to the market. We've stopped the skyrocketing madness and replaced it with a slow, stable trend that allows earning power to catch up. Think about the contrast for a moment. On December 16th, the same day we were shoring up our procurement laws, the U.S. was reporting that their business activity growth has hit a 6-month low, while their input prices jumped to a 3-year high. Their unemployment rate is hitting a 4-year peak because they decided that tariff was a magic word that creates wealth. It doesn't. It's a tax on the consumer, and the data proves it. Their job growth effectively stalled in April 2025, the moment those trade wars escalated. We are watching a giant drive its ship straight into an iceberg of its own making, while we in the North are navigating the ice with precision and care. We're seeing more Canadians choose Mexico for their winter getaways because they're smart enough to realize their dollar goes further there than in a country gripped by self-inflicted inflation. It's a strategic decision, much like the decisions being made at our federal level. We are playing a different game now. We are moving away from being a branch plant economy and toward being a sovereign power that manages its resources, its borders, and its capital with a focus on the long game. I know it's easy to get caught up in the negativity when you're filling up your tank or buying beef, which, let's be real, is expensive because of droughts and supply chain issues that no tax cut can fix. But you have to look at the horizon. We are entering 2026 with a leaner, meaner, and more focused economic engine. We've stabilized the currency, we've brought inflation under control, and we're about to launch some of the largest industrial projects in our nation's history. Do you feel that shift? It's the feeling of a country that is finally growing up and realizing it doesn't need to follow the chaotic lead of its neighbors to be successful. We have the minerals, we have the energy, and now we finally have the policy framework to keep the benefits of those assets right here for our children. It's about more than just numbers on a graph. It's about national dignity. It's about knowing that when we build a road to the Ring of Fire, it's Canadian companies leading the way. When we buy new equipment for our government, it's Canadian hands that assembled it. This is the quiet strength of the North. And as we move into the next phase of this analysis, I want you to ask yourself, would you rather be on a ship that's shouting about greatness while sinking, or on the one that's silently outmaneuvering every storm? The choice is obvious, and the data doesn't lie. We are winning this trade war simply by staying sane while the rest of the world goes mad. And that, my friends, is the most Canadian victory of all. As we sit here in the closing days of 2025, look at the reality of our situation compared to the rhetoric. They told us immigration was out of control, yet the government adjusted the taps, And now we see a stable population for the first time in years, easing the pressure on every doctor's office and every rental listing in this country. They told us inflation would ruin us, yet we sit at 2.2% while the world's largest economy struggles with mounting price pressures. We are doing the hard work, the unglamorous work of fixing the foundations. It's not always pretty, and it doesn't always make for a great 10-second soundbite. But it's the kind of work that ensures that by 2026, when those shovels hit the ground in Northern Ontario, we won't just be looking at a road, we'll be looking at the beginning of a new Canadian century. We are finally playing chess while the others are playing checkers. And for those of us who have lived through the ups and downs of the last 40 years, this feels different. It feels like we've finally decided to be the masters of our own house. Think about the sheer audacity of the Buy Canadian policy for a second. For years, the mantra was free trade at all costs, even if it meant our own industries withered away. But the world has changed. The world is becoming more protectionist, more volatile, and more fragmented. In that kind of environment, being a nice guy who lets everyone else take a piece of your pie isn't a virtue. It's a weakness. By mandating that federal contracts go to Canadian firms, we are essentially creating a guaranteed market for our own innovation. We are telling our entrepreneurs, if you build it here, if you hire here, if you pay taxes here, we will back you. That is how you build a middle class that lasts. That is how you ensure that the person living down the street from you has a high-paying job that doesn't disappear the moment a foreign CEO decides to move a factory to a cheaper jurisdiction. We are reclaiming our sovereignty, one contract at a time. And when you combine that with the fact that we're seeing gasoline prices drop, down nearly 8% year over year, you start to see the breathing room opening up for the average household. But let's talk about the critics, the ones who claim everything is spiraling out of control. Is it? If housing prices are steadying, if inflation is at 2.2%, and if we're adding high-value infrastructure deals to our national portfolio, where is the spiral? It's a manufactured crisis designed to make us feel small, but I'm telling you, as someone who looks at these numbers every day, Canada is the adult in the room right now. We aren't making impulsive, ego-driven decisions. We're making pragmatic ones. We're working with the provinces, even the ones who don't always see eye to eye with Ottawa, because at the end of the day, a road to the Ring of Fire benefits everyone. It's about the minerals needed for the future, and Canada sits on one of the largest deposits on the planet. We are the gas station, the mineral bin, and the high-tech hub of the future, all rolled into one. And we're doing it while maintaining a social fabric that isn't tearing at the seams like it is elsewhere. So, when you hear the noise, when you see the sensationalist headlines, I want you to remember the date December 16th. Remember the 2.2% inflation rate. Remember the 682,200 average home price that is finally stopping its vertical climb. These aren't just statistics. They are the vital signs of a patient that has recovered and is now starting to outrun the competition. We are seeing a strategic shift in travel, in spending, and in national policy that all points toward one thing: a more self-reliant, more prosperous Canada. We are no longer just the country to the north. We are the benchmark for stability in an unstable world. We are choosing to invest in ourselves, to protect our borders, and to grow our wealth per person rather than just growing for growth's sake. That is a vision worth getting behind. That is a vision that should make every Canadian from 40 to 65 feel a sense of relief that the foundations are being secured for the next generation. We've seen the boom and bust cycles before, But this feels like the beginning of a sustained, sober, and powerful ascent. We are building the Phao Dai Phuong Bak, the fortress of the North, and it's built on a foundation of solid data, smart policy, and the undeniable grit of the Canadian people. Stay with me, because in the next part of this deep dive, we're going to look even closer at the specific sectors that are going to explode in value as these policies take full effect in 2026. This is just the beginning of the briefing. Building on that strategic foundation we've just discussed, we need to talk about the long game, the specific offensive maneuvers that will define the Canadian landscape as we cross the threshold into 2026. If Part 1 was about fortifying our borders and stabilizing our internal vitals, Part 2 is about the projection of power. You see, the real genius of the 2025 pivot isn't just that we stopped the bleeding. It's that we've successfully re-engineered the engine while the car was still moving. Think about the Ring of Fire again, but look at it through the lens of global geopolitics. While the United States is busy erecting trade barriers that stifle their own innovation, Canada is doing the exact opposite by creating a fast track for the 21st century's most valuable currency, critical minerals. When construction starts in 2026, it won't just be a road through the Ontario wilderness. It will be a lifeline to the global tech industry that bypasses the chaos of volatile international markets. We are effectively telling the world's manufacturers that if they want stability, if they want ethically sourced materials, and if they want a partner who doesn't change the rules of the game every 4 years based on a whim, they have to come to us. Isn't it remarkable how we've managed to align federal and provincial interests under that one project, one review approach? It's a level of bureaucratic efficiency we haven't seen in this country for half a century. And it's happening precisely when our competitors are becoming more fragmented. But let's get personal for a moment. You're sitting there, perhaps wondering how this macroeconomic chess match affects your retirement or your family's security. The answer lies in the strengthening of the Canadian dollar's real-world utility. When we choose Mexico over the United States for our winter getaways, as the data from late 2025 clearly shows, we aren't just saving money. We are engaging in a form of national arbitrage. We are taking our hard-earned Canadian currency and spending it where it is respected and where it goes further, rather than feeding an American inflation machine fueled by those self-defeating tariffs. This is strategic consumerism. It's the same logic behind the Buy Canadian procurement laws. We are creating a closed-loop system where Canadian wealth circulates within our own ecosystem, or flows to partners who offer us the best value, rather than being drained by a neighbor that has forgotten how to spell cooperation. Have you noticed how the tone of our national conversation is shifting from "how do we survive them" to "how do we outgrow them"? The 2025 increase in per capita GDP is the first ripple in a massive wave of domestic prosperity. As we move into 2026, the cumulative effect of lower gasoline prices, which dropped nearly 8% recently, and a stabilized housing market will start to manifest as a significant increase in disposable income for the 40 to 65 demographic. We are the ones who hold the bulk of the nation's private capital, and for the first time in 3 years, the environment is being calibrated to protect our assets rather than inflate them away. Now consider the food independence frontier. Yes, the 4.7% rise in grocery costs is a bitter pill, specifically when you're looking at the price of a prime cut of beef or fresh winter greens. But look at the response. We are seeing a massive surge in interest toward domestic, indoor agricultural technologies, following the Dutch model of high-efficiency, year-round growing. This is the next phase of the Canadian fortress. By 2026, we won't just be mining the minerals for the world's batteries. We will be pioneering the tech to feed ourselves independently of those soaring U.S. import costs. We are learning, albeit the hard way, that depending on a single volatile neighbor for our basic caloric needs is a strategic failure we can no longer afford. Every time a MAGA policy hikes the cost of a California orange, it provides the business case for a Canadian entrepreneur to build a greenhouse in southern Ontario or the prairies. We are turning their protectionism into our provocation for innovation. We are becoming a nation that doesn't just import and hope, but builds and knows. Can you feel the shift in the atmosphere? The quiet strength I talk about is the sound of a country that has stopped looking south for permission. We are watching the U.S. unemployment rate hit 4-year highs, and their retail sales stagnate because they've trapped themselves in a cycle of input price shocks. Meanwhile, our November inflation held at 2.2%, a surgical precision that allows the Bank of Canada to breathe, and more importantly, allows you to plan. We are no longer the frozen north that follows in the wake of the American giant. We are the stable, pragmatic alternative. We are the nation that signs deals between Ottawa and Queen's Park to get things built, while they sign executive orders that tear things down. It's a contrast that is becoming impossible to ignore. Even the housing market, which everyone feared would collapse, has instead chosen a path of graceful correction. A national average price of $682,200 isn't a disaster. It's a destination. It's a level that, when combined with rising per capita earnings, finally makes sense again. We are returning to an economy based on merit and production, rather than speculation and debt. As we stand on the precipice of 2026, your role in this is to recognize the victory for what it is. It's a victory of patience over panic. It's the realization that while some politicians will always find a reason to say the sky is falling, the ground beneath our feet has never been more solid. We have successfully navigated the post-pandemic population surge. We have tamed the inflation beast without breaking the back of our labor market. And we have laid the literal and figurative roads to a resource-rich future. The Buy Canadian era is here. And it's not just a slogan. It's our new national defense strategy. We are protecting our jobs, our companies, and our way of life from the erratic winds blowing from the south. So I'll ask you one last time. When you look at the data, the real hard numbers of 2025, do you see a country that is broken? Or do you see a nation that is finally, decisively, taking command of its own destiny? I think we both know the answer. We are Canada, and we are just getting started. The frost might be deep, but the fire in our industrial heart is burning brighter than ever. Welcome to the new era of Canadian sovereignty. Let's get to work. If this strategic breakdown gave you a new sense of pride in our quiet strength, do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to join our growing community of informed Canadians. We're building something special here, and your voice is the most important part of the conversation. I'd love to hear your thoughts below. Do you feel the Buy Canadian shift is long overdue for our local businesses? Are you planning a Mexico getaway to outsmart those southern price hikes? Or what part of our 2026 growth plan excites you most? Stay proud, stay invested, and may your winter be warm and prosperous. Cheers.